Hello, everyone. So, today we are going to have the second part of the series of Gen Y and Gen Z with Vajanti Srinivas Raghavan. So, Viji, for the ones who have missed out, the first part we did speak about who are the millennials, who's the Gen Y as well as the Gen Z, and how and how is it for them? What are their aspirations and how do they go about and march ahead with belief in their careers? And today we are going to talk about how do they plan their careers with a little bit of an emphasis on the women as well as also on the financial part of it and everything that goes with the corporate life. And helping us out is Vajanti Srinivas Raghavan. She's from IBM, and Vajanti currently leads the GBS Business Associate Program and WFM Operations and Strategic Initiatives. She is certified delivery project executive with an industry experience of 27 plus years in project management and vendor management and knowledge management in diverse and global environment. She's an accomplished speaker. She is a writer. She's written Shape It, and she's a winner of numerous awards, and she's a university topper. I mean, a lot. Vajanti has accomplished so much and wearing various hats. So, Vijay, I'm so happy that you're there with us today.
Thank you so much. And once again, good morning to you for the second part series of this session. I
Yeah.
look forward for an interesting conversation, Rashmi.
Yeah, same here, Vijay, because you have so much of experience and you are such a practical person and hands-on person. My first question with you is the Gen X, the millennials and the Gen Z, the Gen Y and the Gen Z, millennials and the Gen Z. They have just started. They've already entered the workplace, and some of them are just about to enter and started. The initial years. So how do they plan their career? I mean, this is one thing which I want to ask. And before that, I want to ask, what is the lifespan of a typical engineer career lifespan?
Okay, it's a very interesting question. Yeah, you're asking a two-part question. I'll explain to you in a bit. So when we started as a Gen X, the career lifespan that we are looking at it, say I am in my 40s, right? I don't shy away saying that. But if you look at it, we all came to the job when we were around 23 years of age.
Hmm.
So if you look at it, with the given situations in the market and given dynamics that we have, business dynamics, people are relatively able to sustain themselves for 25 plus years. That's how the lifespan for us looks like. But would it be the same for the future generation, right? That's a big question in front of us because the business expectations are changing and also the newer disruptions that have come in terms of technology has changed and the mindset of the newer generations are very different. So that is where we come across some of these concepts called as the gig economy. I'm not sure whether you've heard about it. It's nothing but in a good old days we used to call it as a freelancing job.
Hmm.
Now today most of the Gen Z and millennials have started exploring the gig opportunities where they call it as a mantra called as I don't want any boss, I don't want any shift, and I don't want any kind of limits, right? They call it as no boss, no shift, and no limits. That's a very interesting word. That means I am in control of my own career. And that was not the case when we all came into the workforce because we had a very defined and set rules. And we had a way how the corporate has defined a career path. That's what we were aware of. But today, the gig economy has completely given a new perspective to the generation because today everything is at a click of a button and you get information right at your home. You are in front of a computer or a smartphone. As I was telling in my last series, that 95% of your Gen Z are having smartphones and they know what they are looking at. There was also when I was talking to my son, I kept telling him that I'm talking to you, but you're not paying attention to me, right? That's what we keep complaining. But they say that that's a very rude way of saying things because I'm really paying attention to what you're saying. It doesn't mean I'm looking at your face and I'm not really acknowledging. It doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. So that's the generation that we're dealing with. They know what they're doing. But I think we have to teach them how we plan our career and can there be some learning for them from that? That's the whole idea of this discussion. Because the point that I was also thinking and deliberating for the last 2 days from our previous session is, uh, possibly in the next series we should have a Gen Z come and speak about it, because today the newer generation want the people who are from their generation to come and talk to them. That's why when we wrote the book Shape It also, we had the representation of millennials in the book. We did not take anybody from Gen X because there's too much of a generation gap, which they will not even it will not even resonate well with the current generation.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much what I was thinking for the last 2 days about this topic. Yeah.
So having said this, Viji, so even they have around 23 years if they manage it well, 25 years, because what we generally hear is after 40, it's very difficult to sustain in the industry. So is it like true, or they can still manage? And I'm talking for a general, I'm not talking about the exceptions, on an average, 40, 45 or more.
See, if you were, again, I have to make a very relative comparison
Yes.
here. If you ask my parents, right, so they will say that 60 years, the way the life was very kind of streamlined for them. They will say that I will get married at this age and I'll get into a job. Then 60, I get retired, I'll get my daughter married or kids settle down. And that's how they plan the life. But today, the generation that we are, Gen X, we have achieved most of the dreams, what they achieved at 60 at the age of 40. So many of us have started thinking in the mid 40s, should we have a plan B? Because now it's a time, our focus has been around children's education, and when they kind of sustain and get into a job, then we are thinking about what we want to do, because what we got in at that point or what we had, but now many of us are looking at what we want to do. If you look at myself, when I came into my mid 40s, I realized that I need to start writing a book. I need to interact more with the students. I have to give back to the community. So that's a perspective that we have gotten into. So now you look at it, the lifespan, if you ask me, I'll be able to put maybe 25 years. I might plan in a corporate and look at something else. Now, the new generation, if you ask me, the way how things are going to be, they are looking for something called as a value and a purpose in the job. And I did mention about it in the last series that they look at four things in the job market. The first thing is they want to be social. That means they want to be more connected either through the device or they want to have a face connect. Many times they say that they don't like, when I say face, not the face can connect to the mobile, but they want to have a face-to-face connect too. Second is they want to have the variety in the task that they are doing. They want to love the job that they are doing, right? Because that's the reason we keep complaining about them, that they keep coming every time and asking, what can I do next? Do you have something else for me? That's because they want to find some purpose and value. And the fourth I was talking about is the reward. They look for instantaneous reward. So given this kind of the expectation and that are coming from the next generation, you might not have typically, they are going to stick around for 25 years in one organization or doing the same set of things. They are going to have multi-career in their thing. They might do possibly work in a technology company. Tomorrow they find something more passionate, which is towards maybe photography. They might get into that. So we have to be open to that.
Yeah.
So our definition of the tenuity in a job is sticking on to the same job for 20 plus years. And that's not going to be something that we are going to see in the coming days. It's going to be very different. So we have to change our perspective too as a parents and as a faculty in the college, because many times in the placement we say that it is what it is, you have to get into it, but maybe that's where they have to find an inner purpose. We used to talk about these words, inner purpose, inner engineering in late 60s and in 40s. Now they are thinking of very early on in their life. So that's very interesting to observe.
Yeah. And Vijay, now coming, okay, they enter the workplace, they're pretty smart and all that stuff. But what are the things that they have to keep in mind so that they have a better future, a better career? How do they plan their career?
It's, I think for that, I want to show them something. I thought I will just put a slide. I feel that everyone should have some representation like this, what I'm going to share on a slide. And I want each one to go back and try it out. So let me share my screen for a minute. So Rashmi, just give me a
Yeah.
thumbs up if you can see my slide, okay? Yeah, okay. So this is, I call it as a career blueprint, because when I started my journey, the first thing I did not have a clarity after a certain point where I was marching towards. So somebody who was my mentor, she said that you need to have something called as a career blueprint, which will give you the mapping between your experience and the skill that you have acquired and achievement you've acquired over a period of time. Map it in a graph like this. That's the first thing that I started to work on, right? I started working on my career blueprint maybe 15 years back. I started it. And then I started really mapping out. I feel that was too late. I could have done it much ahead of time if I had known this. Then I started working on my desired roles and the gaps that I have that you see on the extreme top. I know where I have the skill gap. I know what I want to achieve. And I know what is the achievement I have had so far, right? You can see all of those here and the star marks, that what is the major milestone, what are the top, what is being a top performer, right? You feel elated when you look at that red dot. Hey, I did beautifully well, I've done a great job, and I've got the rewards and recognition. I think this is how the career map and the career blueprint have to be worked on by each individual. I feel for the newer generation, the career blueprint could have, if I had rehashed this every 6 months, probably the newer generation or the Gen Z would be kind of redoing it possibly every quarter, because they keep transitioning to a new role, they have a new expectation. So when you put this career blueprint, what I see is uh, I look at three mantras. One, you turn back, right, and look at what you've achieved, and you kind of learn from it. That's the second step that you do. And the third you do is in moving forward, right? What happens in this three-part rule is that when you turn back, you start looking at that red dots and the milestone, you really feel energized. You don't feel kind of depressed or I haven't done anything. You feel so happy about it. Then you figure out, okay, then what do I learn now and achieve something similar in the future and do something better in the future. That's where your learning perspective comes in, and then you are looking forward to move forward with your life. So I think this career blueprint is very, very important, and each one of us need to have that career blueprint with us, and that's the recommendation I have, even for Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. So this is a beautiful representation shared by my mentor to me. And I do it all along. And I share this with many of the women who come in the corporate and girls I meet in the colleges, so that they know what they are marching towards. And they have to march forward. That's what it is all about.
Yeah. Thank you, Vijay, for sharing this very important slide. And Vijay, my coming to the next part is, see, finances, because what I find is, a lot of students are so clueless about it because our academic institutions do not prepare them for that. And there's not much learning from home also. So what would your advice be as a seasoned professional? How do they manage their money? Because it's the first time when they enter the workplace, they get that money coming in. So any tips on planning that?
So I remember my first job. I have to tell you, when I got into my first job, that is around 1992. When I graduated, I got into my first job. We never had these ATM cards and debit cards and other things. I remember I used to carry cash back home, right? I never seen a cash 5,000 in those days is a big amount, right? Never
Yeah.
unheard of. So we used to go by multiple transport. We used to go by rail and sometimes take a bus back home. The first thing the parents used to educate us is be beware of the pickpockets and be sure that you get the money back home safe, right? So that's the worry that we carried at that time. So we started realizing that you have to be careful about the money. That's what we were taught when we got into the workplace for the very first time. But as things moved, the technology moved forward. Today, you have the debit cards, you have the credit cards. So you just swipe it, you're done, right? So now the more the worry is about how you're swiping it, you're using it online, how secure things are in the laptop. So the way things have changed about the security is different. There we were worried about the physical person pickpocketing, and here it is more everything is digital, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is going to continue. But more so, I think the focus has to be around how do you really manage your finances. I think that's where we find, and even in the corporate, we tell the women that the financial management is very important because many times when we were growing up, we gave all the onus to our father at home to manage things. If you had a father who was taking care of things at home, so we never bothered to sit with him and understand the finances. Maybe my first account I had in the bank was when my first birthday, probably uh, when I became a teenager, they opened an account. But today, what we do for the younger generation, as they turn 1 year, we have an account for them already, a joint account. So you already know there is an account existing. But how many of them or the girls are going back and checking what is being credited and debited to the account? That's the first thing that you have to do. Finance doesn't have to be taught in a curriculum, but it has to come by practice. Because we used to maintain books where we used to write how much are we spending and what are we doing. We do that when we go to on-site opportunities. When you're living with few of your other friends, you know who's spending how much. My point is, why can't we start early on of managing your own bank accounts and understand what is going in and what is coming out, so that you also understand that when there are setbacks in your life, you know that financial management, when we are poor, it we can't manage your life. You need to understand that better. So that is where the first education we give to the girl students when we go as part of the STEM education, or when we go to the colleges, we say that financial management is very, very important. Second thing, what we see is uh, life is full of unknown. You can't have a very uh, carved out and a planned life. It's very difficult. Today, you look at the pandemic situation, everything is so unknown. Are we to fear about it? No. But you need to know how are the financial to be managed at home front, how much you should spend, where you should spend. I think people have become very judicious about the spending, about their transactions online, be it the vendor to in the next door, or you are trying to use Google Pay and other things. People have started becoming little smart on how do you manage the finances. I think for the girls, everything starts from you at home, and your first bank account teaches you how to manage your finances better, not getting into the nitty-gritties of what is credit, what is debit. You will understand, look at your passbook. That is the first education that you get on the finances and how you manage your finances. That has been my experience.
Yeah, and also saving and investing, because I think sometimes girls think, oh, they're going to get married and there's going to be the father was there and then there's the husband around who's going to take care. And, so they don't really, many a times, I'm not talking for everyone, but, that's also a point that they should be wary
The
of. And
investing is another big area, because that is where you have to understand where to invest, how much to invest, and that is where you start getting into the business, understanding the types of business, what is the possible growth for this business. So I think for the girls, when they get into the college and they want to invest, then they have to understand the companies, what different companies exist, what is the future of this company in the coming years. And many times you also tell the entrepreneurs, particularly the girls and the women, that you need to know, you need to have better control on your finances, because many times the startup fails because it's not because the product was bad or the services was bad, but because we didn't know how to manage the finances better. That is where most of the startups get into trouble. That has been the study as well.
all right. And Vijay, I also want, because because of your experience, and I also see this often happening in the colleges. The girls actually enter the corporate world in equal numbers. But then I somehow feel that the numbers decrease, and for me the example would be whenever the technical panel comes, there are very few women. It's basically a male dominated thing. So is it like, I mean, what happens to these girls, once they join the corporate world? Why are so many of them leaving? And then you have these diversity drives and all that stuff to encourage more women into it. So what would you suggest for these girls? How can they sustain their career over a longer period of time?
So this about the girls in the workplace, right? Particularly, there has been a conscious effort by various organizations to bring in more women to the workforce, right? One is, of course, the girls who are from college to corporate, and also there is a conscious effort to bring back women to work if they have left because of a certain reason. That's what we call in the corporate terminology a leaky pipeline, right? This is one of
Right.
the major problem that we have. Now, there are multiple reasons to it. Now, what Gen X faced as a problem is not what your Gen Z are going to face. That's very clear. Because when we were in the workforce, we had multiple stakeholders to manage. If I have to say, you had elderly parents or elderly in-laws to manage, you have children growing up. So there were a lot of things that we were taking care of. So we saw that women were dropping out when they were in the mid-level management because they were not able to move places along with their husband and they were not able to possibly get jobs. So we have seen that as well. So they were trying to say that, let me focus on my family and then come back, right? So that's the kind of generation that we were in. But today, the Gen Zs, what they have is they're very clear about things. They're not going to see that problem with them. But the problem is today is how I am going to be flexible and how much I need to learn and be a lifelong learner. That's the focus that we have been talking about all along. Because today the technology is changing fast. Today you have to keep in pace with technology. So you should have that mindset to learn something new all the time. So that is where your focus is going to be. To your question, why we see more male coming as a panelist and not many female, there are various reasons. You're not going to see that anymore because with the remote interviewing
Yes.
process going to happen now, you will see more women coming in and helping in the process because for the campus season, we used to have male traveling more because of the various reasons, because the support system at home has to be there and so on and so forth. So we consciously bring in female, but at that point in time, if they are available, they come in. Otherwise, you need to have a better support system at home. Are there enough technical women at work? Um, there has been a challenge many years back, but now there is a focus that we tell women that you have to pursue your technical career. You have to be there. You have to become a distinguished engineer. You have to have a patent. So there continued focus from the corporate as well to help women to continue in the technical line. So I was reading an interesting article the other day. I think I did come and mention in your college when I was there. We conduct hackathons, right? We do have technical hackathon. We have seen going for 2 days and 3 days right in the college campus all night and everything. So there was a girl who came and interestingly was asking a question. Why do you have an hackathon at the wee hours when my father is standing right outside the college and asking me to come back home, right? So now we all will have to collectively think at some point if we need to have more women representation at all places. Are we to look at our policies and things even when you are conducting a hackathon? How do we bring in that inclusivity, keeping certain constraints in mind because we still are driven culturally with certain constraints. So we have to keep that in mind. So I think organizations have started doing it, some colleges have started doing it. I think that's how we can bring in that change and have more representation of women and girls in the system.
Yeah, Vijay. Thank you so much for this. And we will be in continuation. We'll be talking for any last, just to put in anything last tips from your end or something that we missed
I
out.
have three
Yeah.
tips for you. Three tips I have. I think I always call this as consistently doing small things. Don't even think of something big. Do these three things consistently. First is you need to have a mentor. Pick a mentor. Because when I even shared my career blueprint, I said this is something my mentor shared it with me, because what you cannot see, your mentor can possibly see and help you out, right? Pick a mentor. That's the first thing that you need to do. The second thing is manage your finances. That has to start from home right today, right? And third thing, I would say grab the opportunity. The reason I say that, we are very poor at it sometimes. We feel, if I take this opportunity, will I fail? The first thing that you think of something very adverse. Please don't do that. Take the opportunity. When you called me to do this YouTube recording, I said, I latched onto it. I said, yeah, I love doing it, right? So it is an opportunity. So I was a very shy person in college. If people will see this video, who are saying, oh, is this the same person? I have transformed over a period of time because I had a right mentor telling me how I should change my outlook and perspective in life for my sustenance within the organization. So that's what you need to do. You need to have the ability to grab the opportunity and don't leave it there. These are the three things that I have to tell to the young students and particularly the girls.
Thank you so much, Vijay, for sharing your experience with the Gen Y and Gen Z. And we will be doing the last part of this with Vijay, where we are going to talk about how we need to look in and rather than looking out, and to improve ourselves. So that will be for another session. And it's bye from both of us.